You know, you have to stop saying that you're going to move to Canada whenever you're mad at something in the U.S. As a Canadian, I'm sorry, but no, you can't. I know we're friendly, but Canada's not your safe house. I mean, we barely let Canadians into Canada anymore, so please, pick somewhere else. I hear Finland is really lovely this time of year.
Hi besties, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Do you know what I was thinking? I have a letter that I've been sitting on for a really long time of Ryan Reynolds, and a statement he gave to police in Vancouver. And I think people are very confused about why people keep claiming that the judge is corrupt. You know, the judge bristled and got really annoyed by some of the letters that Perez Hilton was sending, and perhaps content creators who were telling the court that they believed he was being biased. And, you know, judges don't like to hear the truth sometimes. And the facts of the matter is that the New York district, the Southern District of New York, is literally one of the most corrupt federal districts in the United States. They have had, and they litigate more corruption cases against public figures, clerks, judges, law enforcement, public officials than other areas of the country. The corruption is thick. The history of corruption in New York is deep. And so it's not at all illogical for anyone in this case to suggest or even imply that there is corruption, because some of the rulings that are happening here wouldn't happen in any other court. The rope that Blake and Ryan are getting and allowed to continue to, get away with is I've never seen before. The judge completely siding almost exclusively with Blake over and over and over again, and ignoring factual evidence of illegal subpoenas or abusive process or whatever it is, turning a blind eye to what he sees them doing, and then listening, and just everything that Wayfair does is wrong, And I want to share something with you, because I haven't shared this with you before, but I wouldn't put it past Ryan Reynolds to attempt to influence the judge or the court and use his power in order to do so. I received a letter from a whole case file from when Ryan tried to put a paparazzo in prison. Back in 2015 and 16, he claimed that he was hit by a car. And because this paparazzo took a photograph of Ryan in his Deadpool makeup before the film had come out, where he looks like he's gone through a fire, that had never been seen before. And he got a picture of it, and he put it out on the internet, and Ryan lost his mind. He was so angry. A photograph of him in makeup of Deadpool prompted a months-long, years-long tirade by him, Ryan, to try to imprison this paparazzo over false allegations. And then he used his influence in Vancouver of the amount of money he would bring to the state with films. And I want to just read you a letter that he wrote to the police. This was after he had given a statement. It's from April 12th of 2015, and I have never, ever, ever shared this whole letter before. So I want you to have a peek inside the mind of Ryan Reynolds. Hi, my name is Ryan Reynolds, and I'm an actor, public figure from Vancouver, BC, Canada. My wife is also an actor and public figure named Blake Lively, married named Blake Reynolds. Our 4-month-old daughter is James Inez Reynolds. My mother's name is Tamara Lee Reynolds. We have a long history of events involving Richard Fidek. My first memory of Richard occurred in Vancouver 4 years ago. My wife and I were in a city for a week to visit with family and friends when, while driving a car, I noticed Richard following us in his vehicle. We were making our way from our hotel in downtown Vancouver to my mother's apartment in Kitsilano. Richard followed us at unlawful speeds, often bringing his vehicle dangerously close to our vehicle. I want to remind you that none of this happened. None of it. Concerned for the safety of my wife, me, and my surrounding pedestrians and commuters, because he's helping everyone, I pulled my car over and exited the vehicle to ask the person who was following us with such recklessness. As I exited the car, I saw Richard Fidek produce a long lens camera and proceeded to take photographs of me. Being a public figure, I'm used to an understanding of why I might have photos taken while out in public. However, it is unusual to be engaged by a photographer who is simultaneously driving a vehicle in this manner. His unusual and aggressive methods were extremely alarming to me. With the understanding that he is a paparazzi, I chose at the time to not engage in a verbal conversation with Fidek and instead returned to my car and carried on to my destination. Fidek continued to follow us and continued to position his vehicle dangerously close to ours, so close that I was fairly certain the front end bumper of his vehicle would eventually touch the back end bumper of our vehicle. At the time, we were confused, frustrated, and afraid of his behavior. Once we reached our destination, Richard remained outside of the apartment building of my mother's address. We observed him from the window of the apartment pacing outside the building, walking around the entrance and into the underground parkade and hiding behind the bushes across the street. Now, mind you, I already did a video on this, so all of what he's saying is a complete lie. It doesn't match any of the evidence, but this is a completely fabricated story that didn't happen. That's like the truth, okay? If you want to see the episode that I talked about this, it is in my podcast playlist. My wife has a well-documented history with a stalker, and the behavior she's witnessing from Fidek was deeply concerning to her. For the remainder of that particular trip, we saw Fidek at least a dozen more times from our hotel room window and from the window in the fitness facility in the hotel, located on the 5th floor. As a precaution to avoid the vehicular collision with Fidek, we remained in our hotel room for the rest of our trip, choosing instead to have family visit us at our location. Approximately 3 years ago, we returned to Vancouver for a similar trip. We were so concerned that Fidek would be waiting at the airport, as was often a behavior as we'd witnessed of him in the past, that we instead decided to fly into Seattle and simply rent a car and drive the 2 hours into Vancouver from the SeaTac airport. Unfortunately, he discovered we were in Vancouver soon after. On this particular trip, both my wife and I witnessed an escalation in the erratic and aggressiveness actions of Fidek. Once again, driving down from our hotel to visit my mom in Kitsilano, Richard, this time accompanied by an Asian female, engaged us by pursuing our vehicle at dangerously close distance. Driving between us and Richard's vehicle, I proceeded through the intersection as the traffic signal changed from green to yellow. The bus was directly behind me and Richard was directly behind the bus. Because the traffic light changing, the bus stopped before entering the intersection, leaving across the intersection despite the light. Other motorists honked their horns, and one in particular car locked its brakes as Richard made his way illegally across the intersection. I pulled over. In that moment, my wife and I became concerned that our being followed was now a liability for any number of third parties. So if you notice, no matter what Ryan does, he always frames himself as like the hero of everyone around him. And again, this did not happen. When he claimed this happened, Richard was not even in Vancouver. Our concern was that Richard could cause a serious accident leading to injuries. At this point, I decided the situation was far more serious than previously thought. We parked on the north side of West Broadway, approximately 50 meters from Vine Street. I felt the only choice we had available to us at this point was to call 911. At the time, I couldn't find my phone, and Richard Fidek parked his car directly behind us. My wife was afraid and crying. I was in a state of disbelief that a photograph would be worth this level of risk and disregard for others' safety. It was my firm belief that Fidek was also taking pleasure in the pursuit and imitation dispensed by his actions. We often witnessed him smiling or waving as he drove up beside or behind our cars.